London, December 2008. With the daily influx of workers, the city has swollen to 10 million people. In London's ambulance control centre, the busiest in the world, calls are coming in thick and fast. In the corner sits a single paramedic.
Is he conscious?
His job, to scan thousands of calls, looking for the most critical. At 3:38, he spots one. In the city's northwest, a child has run into the path of a 4x4 vehicle. His life now hangs in the balance. But from a porter cabin on a hospital roof, help is on its way. If there's a serious car accident, a fall from height, a stabbing, or a shooting, the capital has a trauma team on constant alert. London's Air Ambulance. Call sign, Medic 1. London's Air Ambulance has been called to the aid of a 12-year-old boy hit by a car. With suspected head injuries, he needs specialist treatment on scene quickly.
Whenever you get a call to a child, it doesn't matter how experienced you are, how long you've been doing the job, it really starts your heart racing.
We'll make a decision when we're there with Tom.
Unlike a ground ambulance, Medic 1 takes a specially trained paramedic and a trauma doctor to the scene. They can anaesthetize and even operate before reaching hospital.
We've got some blues coming through down there.
The co-pilot spots blue lights. A ground ambulance crew is battling to keep the boy alive.
There is nowhere.
They need to find a landing site as close as possible and as rapidly as possible.
Guys, we've got 7 o'clock now. Yeah. Just the other side of what looks like a swimming pool. There's a building with lots of scaffolding around it. Oh yeah.
It's a particularly built-up area. The best they can find is a sports field, but it's half a mile from the scene. The team have to find their way on foot. Time is not on their side.
Had a bit of a problem getting close to the scene of this little boy. Hopefully, the ambulance control is organising for a vehicle to rendezvous with us.
Cricklewood Lane, it's that way, isn't it?
Medic 1, go ahead.
We're at junction of Farm Avenue
And Cricklewood Lane, NW2.
In the control centre, the team's duty paramedic can coordinate with the other emergency services. Having alerted the police to their whereabouts, a squad car comes to their aid.
Thank you, guys.
It is rare to do a child knocked down compared to adults. The fact that it's rarer adds a degree of anxiety.
This is Gareth leading today.
Hi, Gareth. This is a 12-year-old gentleman who's been struck by a car, that one up there.
Okay.
You could see from the outset he was a very, very sick child. He was in a deep coma. He'd had a significant blow to the head, and you could see that his face and head was bloodied through bruising and wounds. But the thing that concerned me most was that his breathing was very, very poor and grunting.
Breathing's not right, is it?
No, it's not right. He's struggling quite heavily with it, but I can't do much.
His lungs are bruised and blood blocks his airway. Young Mohammed is critically short of breath.
That is absolutely crucial because the brain has got enough problems. Starvation of oxygen would, if not leaving disabled, result in his death.
I'm going to need all this space secured here.
The team need to pass a tube into Mohammed's windpipe.
Okay.
Before doing this, he must be anaesthetised.
Yeah, this is going to be an RSI, no triage decision as yet. We anaesthetise the child probably once every month. Train for it, we don't do very many of them.
The weight of a child or age of a child has significant implications on the dosages of drugs that we give. So we use 5 mils.
5 mils of etomidate.
And these drugs are not simple antibiotics. These are drugs that can, given in the wrong dose, can literally stop your heart.
The crew have been on the scene for 16 minutes.
Sorry, can you just tube, please?
By the time Mohammed is intubated, daylight has almost gone. They still have to fly him to hospital.
To put the tube down and control his breathing, and after the tube was put down, we literally had to put suction catheters down that tube, deep down into his lungs, and suck out the blood. And all of that blood was coming from the bruised, damaged lungs that had occurred when the car hit his chest.
It's now crucial that he gets to the right hospital for his injuries. The helicopter will fly him to the Royal London Hospital, Britain's busiest trauma centre. The air ambulance is a small operation. A single duty doctor and a paramedic, on call for 10 million people. But they make a big impact on the capital's most seriously injured. In the past year, the service has attended nearly 2,000 incidents. An hour after arriving on scene, Mohammed is handed over to the hospital. Much of the work of a normal A&E department has already been done.
Okay, everybody listen up. Hey, everybody nice and quiet. We get team leader.
He's a 12-year-old who was hit by a car. He has a head injury. He's got multiple facial abrasions and abrasions to his lower limb.
This X-ray shows that this side of the chest is effectively normal, but there's much whiteout on this side, which is either damage to the lung itself or he's actually bled into that side of the chest, and there's just free blood in that side of the chest. So, I mean, that's not good. Not good at
all. This is the helicopter's last flight of the day. But the work of the team goes on. The helicopter isn't allowed to land in built-up areas at night, so a car is used. A fast car. In it, Dr. Zane Perkins and paramedic Elisa Barr, who also has to drive, are covering the whole of Greater London. It's 3:15 a.m. and in South London, a motorcyclist is lying critically injured.
Red Base Delta Alpha 77.
Hi guys. I'm Zane and this is Elisa.
Cold winter's night, he was covered up in blankets. Difficult to get a picture of actually what's going on.
It's suspected that 26-year-old David has lost control on black ice before crashing into the back of a parked car.
Look at what have you got there?
When you removed the clothing and actually looked at him, you could see how deformed both of his upper legs were. Bilateral, so 2 fractured upper legs is actually life-threatening. You've got a lot of space in your thigh to bleed into.
All right, guys, the most important thing here is that he's most likely lost a fair amount of blood, as you guys have quite rightly picked up, so want to be as careful as possible moving him. We don't want him to re-bleed or anything like that.
David has clearly broken both his thigh bones, or femurs. It is also suspected that he has broken his pelvis.
Not good.
But the fractures themselves are not the biggest worry.
The biggest cause of death from trauma that is preventable is blood loss. And these injuries that he had essentially were all about blood loss. Those two thigh bones are the biggest bones in the human body, and it takes a huge amount of force to break those two bones. The amount of blood you can lose is enough to kill you. Right, this is quite a significant injury, as you saw there. We're going to treat it as a life-threatening injury to him.
Thank you much.
David's parents are already on the scene.
It's not the best wake-up call at 2 o'clock in the morning to know your son's had an accident. Mum's worst nightmare.
David is a very cautious driver, a very sensible driver, and he knows how to avoid most situations. But I think in this instance, it was something which was outside of his control.
Take some deep breaths in for me. Brilliant, excellent.
The blood loss has to be stopped.
Let's shift him down and we'll pull the legs straight from here.
The most effective way to do this is to reassemble his broken bones in their correct positions. But it's a procedure that results in excruciating pain, so David is given drugs that only the Medic 1 team carries.
We're going to move him down 3 foot that way, and we're going to get him all nice and straight, and then we'll log roll him onto the scoop. So if I can get you under one shoulder, Lisa under the other shoulder, I'll reduce the legs as he goes down. Okay, on your count on the head.
On 3. 1, 2, 3. Head down. Okay, Doc?
Yeah, I'm good. Keep going another foot.
Just by pulling the limb straight, we were able just to try and get it back into a normal anatomical position, so try and reduce the space that the bleeding occurs into.
1, 2, 3.
OK, we'll go again just so we can get this.
1, 2, 3.
Right.
Enough room for
Can I get you over here? How are you doing, David?
David.
Okay, he's in a little bit of pain.
In moving David, a further injury is uncovered.
And pull quite hard.
Just as we rolled him and I felt down the back, the femur had actually come through the back, so an open fracture, which is obviously even more complicated for him.
Okay, fantastic. I think you can let go of that now. Thank you. Okay, good pulse on this side. Good pulse on this side.
David is intubated, chemically paralysed and on life support, before the 15-minute journey to the Royal London Hospital.
David has got some significant injuries from the pelvis down. You saw his legs and that. He probably needs to go straight into theatre to have that fixed. But, well, you've seen the state he's in. I don't think he shouldn't get any worse, and we're going to just treat him for the worst-case scenario.
Yes, Mum, and I just needed to hear that.
Okay.
His blood loss is so worrying that a code red has been requested. This means that a large amount of blood will be ready when they arrive. He will need 18 units transfused over 24 hours, equivalent to the whole of his circulating blood, replaced twice over. A CT scan will reveal that he also has a lacerated spleen and bruised bowels. He will need immediate surgery to remove the damaged and dead tissue and to begin the process of repairing his bones. His stay in hospital will be a long one.
Cheers, bye.
But without the intervention on scene, he may not have survived at all.
Okay, everybody listen up.
Guys, this is David. He's 23 years old. He's a motorcyclist. He rode into the back of a car.
London's air ambulance is based in Whitechapel, East London, on the roof of the Royal London Hospital. In its 20-year history, the service has completed over 21,000 missions. The team played a crucial role at major incidents, from the Paddington rail crash and the Soho nail bombing, to the terrorist attacks on the 7th of July 2005.
Most doctors will probably never see as much trauma in their entire career as they do during their 6 months working here in London. And that goes to the paramedics as well. The doctors tend to be fairly senior in their career progression, and I think they're people who really want a challenge. Most of the time they're confident in their hospital medicine, they're looking for something to push them a little bit more.
Fine.
The focal point of the staff room, the whiteboard, tells the story of the past few days' work. It's a catalogue of industrial accidents, suicide attempts, falls from height, shootings and stabbings. Knife crime forms an increasingly large part of the team's workload, and their training reflects it. Today, new paramedics are learning about a drastic procedure used to revive victims of so-called penetrating trauma. The thoracotomy. It's nothing less than open chest surgery, performed in the most challenging of circumstances.
Okay, so remember that the patient is already dead and you haven't got anything to lose at this point. Most of the thoracotomies we do are inside someone's house or in a nightclub, down on the floor, on the pavement, in the dark, perhaps in the rain. Surrounding the
Dr. Anne Weaver has performed the procedure 10 times.
Every doctor and paramedic in this service, when they get the run sheet through which says central chest stabbing, everybody knows in their heart that they may have to do a thoracotomy. There's no doubt about it, though. It's a very high anxiety state that people are in at that time, but we're trained to deliver that procedure.
The size of the blade doesn't really matter, and that includes the width of it and the length of it. So if you're stabbed in the right place with a screwdriver, it may appear to be a very small wound, but actually it can have gone an awful long way in.
So this is a sort of wound you might see. So you can see it's in the danger area, it's between his nipples, it's above his epigastrium. So now we can...
Et voila.
This is one we prepared earlier.
Oh,
okay.
Blue Peter thoracotomy kit.
Basically, you'll cut through the fat, the skin, right down to the intercostal muscles. Okay, so it's a fairly aggressive incision and it's made quickly. But that would be lifted up, okay? And then you get the rib spreaders and remembering to put the arch on that side, okay? So what you will see is a lung on either side and the heart in the middle, okay? So then you deliver the heart out of this sac. You get your hand in flat behind the back, okay? Flat like that, and you're almost milking the heart, pushing with the heel of your hand, okay?
Medic 1 has an 18% success rate with its roadside thoracotomies. There are over 20 people alive today who have been literally brought back from the dead by the service.
Many of the doctors who have had survivors are actually doing the procedure for the very first time. And I think it's a credit to the training procedure here that people know that they feel they can do it. They've sort of hardwired it into their brain before they actually have to do it for real.
The thoracotomy is a last-ditch attempt to reduce the amount of death from knife crime on London streets.
Ready? Piccadilly.
Stand by, guys. We've got a stabbing. Okay, pass the details, Joe.
In 2008, the team attended nearly 300 stabbings.
Go ahead, mates. Another stabbing.
First of all, there's one down there by the steps, stabbed in the back of the neck. Yeah. Second over here, he's stabbed in his leg.
Only the previous year, the figure was nearly half that, at 175.
You've been stabbed in your kidney area. It's important we actually get you to hospital.
Right, good evening, everyone. He's been repeatedly stabbed with a knife of which the tip is missing. He has a 1 centimetre wound to his left shoulder and a 2 centimetre wound over his right scapula.
If you speak to the police officer in A&E tonight, he's had 6 calls and all 6 have been stabbings that have ended up in hospital.
In some ways, we're probably more exposed to the violence of London. Many people read about it in the papers, but actually going to see someone who's actually been stabbed or shot, be aware of how the city has perhaps changed over the last 5 or 10 years.
The capital's knife problem is not confined to nighttime. It's mid-afternoon.
It's difficult trying to get this on with that.
And Dr. Anna Dobby and paramedic Stephen Gosnell are donning stab vests.
Whenever we go to a patient that's been stabbed or shot, we could be targets as well. So we always make sure that we put on stab vests before we go to one of those sort of scenes.
A knife attack has been reported from a busy market area of South London.
I've worked Central London for 20 years now, and one of the days where kids will have a punch up and there'll be, you know, a couple of kicks and a slap. Today, kids no older than 10, 11, 12 are walking around with kitchen knives and are quite prepared to stab another human being because someone looked at them in a funny way.
Flying at 180 miles per hour, it's taken just 4 minutes from takeoff to landing.
And we're obviously trying to get there as quickly as we possibly can, and the adrenaline does get going, but hopefully that enhances your performance.
Thank you, Dave. That went lovely. Thanks, Dave.
However, in this case, there were lots and lots of people, and it was very difficult to make our way through the crowd.
Excuse me, guys, careful.
There were a lot of people around, and when someone gets stabbed in your community, that's obviously going to create a degree of stress, anxiety and worry.
Two teenage friends have been attacked on their way home from college.
Just come to us. These guys have been working on him for a little. He's probably the one that you want to be looking at.
Steve Gosden and myself initially split up and did simultaneous assessments to see which was the patient who needed our most urgent attention.
Outside, 19-year-old Justin has been stabbed in his shoulder. But inside a shop, his friend James is displaying more worrying wounds.
Goz, are you happy with the other fella?
Yeah, I think it's
Has he got anything else? We realised quickly that James had a wound to his back, and that means that potentially he did have a wound to his heart or into his lungs.
Did you breathe feel easier?
People who have wounds into their heart aren't necessarily sick to begin with. They may look very, very well, and blood may be slowly accumulating in the tight sac that surrounds your heart. And it's only once that tight sac gets full of blood that the patient then becomes very, very sick and their heart may even stop. So we moved him quickly to the back of the ambulance and then carried out a thorough assessment of him. James, just listen to me for a second. Can you just sit forward while Goz just has a quick look at your back to make sure we're not missing any other wounds there?
Yes, we got one wound here.
Yep.
And we got one wound to the left here.
James had 3 injuries. He had one on the back on his left side, which is the same side of his heart. He had another one over his left shoulder, and then he had a wound to his left elbow as well. Hello, can I speak to one of the doctors or nurses, please? What you can't do is assume from the size of wound the amount of injury inside the body, because you could have been stabbed with a kebab skewer with a tiny, tiny little wound, or you could have been stabbed with a machete that's only gone 1 centimetre through the skin. So our aim on scene with these is to make a rapid assessment of the injuries and then take the patient to the most appropriate hospital. Let's just double check we're not missing anything else.
James will be taken to St Thomas's Hospital, which has a cardiothoracic unit. Having heard the news, his 12-year-old sister has turned up on the scene.
Can I see him? Yes, he's really upset that you're calling, okay? But you're looking after him.
James, your sister was here. She's all right. OK, go and say hello to him, and then we're going to take him off to the hospital.
Darling, he's going to be fine, yeah?
Guys, let me know when you're ready.
OK.
Although it's a short journey to hospital, James needs pain relief, and this requires an injection.
OK, it's only one very quick needle.
Sorry,
Sorry.
All done. How's that stop going?
Jamie said shut up.
He was actually extremely fortunate. For in this case, the wounds were actually quite superficial, but potentially it could have been catastrophic.
2 centimetre wound.
How can I get stabbed? Well, you're a big lump. You're not hard to miss, are you? Let's be fair. How can I get stabbed?
Okay, and then you guys cry. My brother's gonna cry. Stop crying.
Stop crying, man.
James spent the night in hospital and was discharged the following morning.
People there, okay? They're going to take an X-ray
X-ray of your chest.
It turned out that he had escaped serious injury to his internal organs.
I think James was incredibly lucky. To be stabbed twice in the back and escape with relatively minor wounds is very fortunate. But, you know, as we hear in the news, you know, almost on a daily basis, it doesn't always turn out like that.
It's a week since 12-year-old Mohammed was airlifted to the Royal London Hospital following his collision with a car. As well as damage to his lungs, he had a ruptured liver and a pelvic fracture. After a few days of critical care, he's recuperating in the children's ward.
Mohammed's case, I knew he damaged his chest, but I didn't think it was as bad as the X-ray showed. And similarly, the fact that he'd ruptured his liver, it just shows how robust little children are, that you can have a rupture of that size and continue to maintain your blood pressure.
For the past year, a 24-hour service has operated at weekends.
HEMS, good evening.
When the ambulance service is flooded with alcohol-related calls, the task for the control room is to identify which of them are serious enough to call the team.
It is like looking for that needle in a haystack. Some calls, someone's fallen down some stairs, but they've actually, you know, traumatically injured themselves quite significantly, but it's not obvious. Other calls scream at you that they need extra help, people that have been struck by trains or buses or, you know, fallen from great height. Frustratingly, you've only got the one team, and there is occasionally that element of, do I want to commit them to this in case of something else?
Yo, Alpha Service 77. Vests on, mate. Yep.
Australian Dr. Neil Ballard is working the 12-hour Saturday night shift.
I think it's a sunny 32 degrees at this very moment in Sydney. Caesar's nightclub in Uxbridge beckons us. And I live a few hundred metres from Bondi Beach, and it'd be terrible there today. Absolutely shocking.
Neil is one of many international doctors who have worked for the service.
Oh, yeah, he got smacked with a bottle in the head. Just keep walking, eh? Thankfully, these all-night shifts are only Friday and Saturday nights. There's booze, there's cars, there's knives. Put them all together and shake them up.
A call has come in for Neil and paramedic Dick Chalkley. Woman versus bus. The location, Trafalgar Square.
Hello, what's your name?
Nina.
Hello, Nina. My name's Neil. I'm a doctor with the ambulance service. What happened?
I crossed the street.
Yep.
And I didn't see the bar.
It's pretty smashed to the front, mate. The windscreen's caved in, yeah, in front of the driver.
Lena stepped in front of a bus after a night out in the West End. It appears that she hit the windscreen with her shoulder.
It's hair or...
OK, fine.
Where are you from?
Colombia.
Colombia. Well, my Spanish is terrible, so I won't try. I know that agua caliente is hot water. OK, 1, 2, 3, roll. OK. I know, it's cold.
My back is there.
Your back's sore, now we're going to get another board under you. That's where it hurts, eh? OK, we're just going to put something on to keep your neck straight, Lena, OK? This is really just a precaution, because you don't get hit by a bus every day.
Remarkably, Lena appears to have escaped serious injury, but she will still need to go to hospital for observation.
Yeah, I'm just going to open your eyes, shine a torch in. She's got little bits of glass on your face too. She's got a lot of glass on her face though, so she's whacked her face as well. That's your phone. You want to take, I think that might be your boyfriend.
My boyfriend.
you want me to talk to him?
Yes, please.
My name's Neil. I'm a doctor with the ambulance service. Lena's okay. So she's been hit by a bus and it's knocked her down. Now, mate, can you listen to me and I'll explain, okay? We're taking her to St Thomas's Hospital. St Thomas's Hospital? No, I can't, mate. You ask someone where St Thomas's Hospital is. So it's I wouldn't have a clue which bus to take, mate, but it's just across the river from Trafalgar Square. Do you want to hear? I'll let her yell to you. So, okay, I'm sure you'd like to hear her voice. Sorry, Lena. There you go.
Baby, just listen the doctor, please.
You reckon that's all her shoulder?
It's the right height for shoulder. That's the impact point, isn't it? The shoulder there.
It's good for us to see this. We get so much information from the mechanism of injury that we see people who are really seriously injured from that sort of force. So you can't take it lightly. And being able to convey that information to the guys in hospital is a huge part of what pre-hospital care is about, letting them know what to look for.
It's mid-February. Despite being admitted before Christmas, motorcyclist David is still in hospital. Following a long day in surgery after his accident, he's had a further 7 trips to theatre with orthopaedic, plastics and trauma surgeons to manage his injuries.
None of these majorly injured patients have a very quick recovery. He's still in hospital at the moment, but he's way past the worst of it.
Today, it's the final operation to his left leg to permanently fix his thigh bone with a metal pin. This will enable his leg to bear his weight. But after 2 months lying in a hospital bed, he will need intense physiotherapy over the coming weeks if he is ever to walk again.
HEMS operations.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And that's given us a road traffic collision persons.
The time is 1:05. There's been a car crash on the A40, right on the edge of Medic 1's operation zone.
Well, interestingly, in London, you don't get very many high-speed traffic accidents because people just can't get the speeds up on the roads. I've been told from the start this was off a big motorway, very high-speed accident. So they offer different challenges.
Polish War Memorial roundabout.
The car has lost control at high speed on a slip road. It has slid up a bank and crashed into a tree, trapping the driver inside. They arrived just 11 minutes after receiving the call, having crossed 13 miles of densely populated city. With so many emergency services on scene, paramedic Dick Chalkley has the task of coordinating the removal of the driver, 19-year-old Kieran.
He hit the tree and then his vehicle bounced back 2 feet from that tree. So that's massive forces involved. His door pillar was completely pushed in. His own seat had sort of moved under the passenger seat.
Hitting a tree is very different to hitting another car that's also moving or a barrier. And he's come to a complete stop from 50 miles per hour plus to 0, which all indicates to me that he's been through a big impact and could be very seriously sick. Okay, let's give...
The biggest worry is that Kieran has internal organ damage due to the massive force of the crash. Spinal damage is also a strong possibility.
Kieran, mate, just working out how to get you out of your car, mate, without moving you too much, without causing too much more pain, okay?
The medics have to balance the need for pain relief with the need to keep Kieran conscious.
Right, Kieran, mate. Open your eyes, mate.
We were trying to just keep him in a very delicate area where he's as relieved of the pain as much as we possibly can, but still able to look after his own breathing and his own airway and still be able to converse with us and tell us what's happening.
Do you want some more of that painkiller? Yeah?
What sort of condition is he in? He's had a big impact, but he's quite stable at the moment, so I'm happy. Let's take him out properly. Good. Yeah.
After 10 minutes, the fire brigade begin Kieran's removal.
It's all right, mate.
Medical concerns about him give them limited options.
Taking Kieran out to the right-hand side was not an option. And to take him out of the left-hand door was also not an option because it would have meant a massive twist in his spine.
Your back's giving you pain?
So the safest option was to take the roof off the car, put a long board in behind him, and then slide him up that board.
Come under his arms. Under his arms there. So, do you want me to take his head from here?
Yeah. There's going to be a little bit of movement behind you, Kieran, mate. Oh, you've got that cord.
Everyone ready? Ready, brace, slide. Well done. Right. Brilliant. Now. Remember, as flat as he can be, guys. He's on a very slippery board.
Once we had Kieran out of the car, we had a very good look at his chest, could see that was significantly injured. He had multiple rib fractures. When the ribs fracture, those sharp ends are, in all intents and purposes, acting as little stab wounds into the lungs, into the heart, and penetrating injuries into all your major organs.
Because of concerns about Kieran's internal damage, he must be airlifted back to the Royal London Hospital. Nearly half of its trauma patients come from road traffic accidents.
The nature of trauma and injuries like this is if you don't treat them quickly, all the things that start going wrong in the body, it's a cascade of events, and eventually they have a long, protracted course at getting better. So it was really just down to speed. If you treat those injuries rapidly and get the guy back on the mend quickly, then they generally do have a very short stay in hospital.
We're at the hospital now, okay? I'll hand you over to the team downstairs. They'll look after you, all right?
I don't think he realized how severely injured he was.
In hospital, Kieran was confirmed as having multiple rib fractures, a collapsed lung surrounded by air and blood, and an unusual injury causing air around his heart. 5 days after the accident, his lungs are still being drained of excess blood.
I think I bumped into a tree. Next thing I know, I'm in here. It's obviously a good thing that I'm going to go home soon, but just when you go home, the reality kicks in. That everything's just gone. That they even cut out my clothes.
Kieran is one of nearly 12,000 car accident victims who's been helped by London's air ambulance during its 20-year history. But despite its value to the capital, it has never been a core part of the National Health Service. The NHS provides staff and resources. Corporate sponsorship also helps. But nearly half of the funds needed to keep the service going come from charitable donations. Many are from grateful former patients.
As a charity, we are vulnerable and we feel vulnerable. And it makes for a nervous time, particularly when the economy is weak. But we do our best to keep the profile of this sort of healthcare high and let people know that it really is important.
It's Friday morning. London is at its busiest. A young woman has been hit by a double-decker bus on her way to work. She now lies trapped beneath it.
If you're trapped underneath a big, heavy vehicle, the dispatcher will dispatch us immediately.
Identify easterly initially and on above altitude 1,000 feet.
She's gone under a bus. She's been pinned under a bus for 20-25 minutes. The whole weight of the bus is on her chest.
Okay. Happy for me to make the call to have a contact.
You've got terrible, terrible thoughts running through your mind, obviously.
The accident happened on Oxford Street. It has brought central London to a standstill.
Really, anywhere in the real centre of London, the really built-up area, it gets very hard to find a spot to land a helicopter. But these pilots are excellent. They'll land us as close as possible, which in this case was Marble Arch, which is, I think, about 3 blocks up Oxford Street from where this accident happened, but still a fair jog through crowded streets.
At that time of day, you've got people rushing to work, you've got people out for the early morning shop, you've got tourists. Coming through! When we got there, to find her in the position that she actually was, lying on her back with her knees up to her chest almost, in a fetal position, was very unusual, and I've never seen anything like that whatsoever.
I'm Steve, I'm from the airline. How many inches do you think you'll get?
We've got large airbags, we'll take out as much as you need.
And so she's pretty tight on there, but yeah,
right.
We need about that much space to get her.
Okay.
The patient is Luella, a 31-year-old jewellery designer. The bus on top of her weighs 12 tons and is putting extreme pressure on her chest.
It was very clear that she was in a critical state, mainly because the bus was pushing down on her legs into her chest, and she was really struggling to breathe.
Cheers. 2 moles of ketamine to start, and that's... What about the bag?
There's a few ton of red bus sitting on top of that lady. That needed to be lifted a good foot and a half for us to extricate her safely.
Heads up, heads up! You ready? Matt! Carry on! Carry on, keep on! Patients who have suffered sort of traumatic injuries can go downhill pretty quick, so it's just a case of speed is the buzzword at the moment. We just get her out on the bed and then we can assess her from there. Keep going! Shut off!
Our colleagues in the fire brigade did themselves proud. They got the bus up very quickly and we were able to extricate her safely.
1, 2, 3.
She was quite a petite lady, which was fortunate for her.
Spinal board whip.
Had it been a big lump like myself, I think we could have been looking at a different ending, perhaps.
1, 2, 3.
Now she is clear of the bus, the doctor is able to give Luella a proper examination.
One of the biggest causes of preventable deaths from trauma is missed injuries. So that's the reasoning behind removing all the clothing.
Take some deep breaths in and out for me.
The pelvis was fractured and it didn't look like that she had lost much blood from it. She looked quite stable from that point of view.
Where does she work now?
The only concern left then was head injury. There's clearly a big bullseye in the front of the bus windscreen, and she was quite slow in her reactions and slightly confused as to what was going on.
We're going to take you to the London Hospital, which specialises in this, and we're going to give you a lot
On top of her drowsy, semi-conscious state, Luella is showing worrying signs of traumatic asphyxiation.
All right, I'm ready to start. Are you guys ready to start? Yeah. All right, we're going to give you the medication that's going to put you to sleep now, all right?
97 and 110.
It was a case of anaesthetising her, controlling her breathing for her, and triaging her back to the Royal London so that the trauma surgeons could assess and do what needs to be done.
I'd like to get going as soon as we can now. on away. These little red dots around her eyes, you can see them around her face, around the neck here. That's all from being crushed and not being able to take proper breath in. I've got a 31-year-old female. She's a pedestrian trapped under a bus. She was trapped for about 25 minutes. Slide all the way. That's it. Well done, everyone. This is Luella. She was a pedestrian hit by a double-decker bus.
As well as her chest being crushed, further tests in hospital showed that Luella had 2 pelvic fractures and a laceration to her head.
Twisted angle and her lower limbs on her chest.
I think her guardian angel was working overtime that day. I mean, she could have so easily have died, you know, and quite easily have been dead before we even turned up. She's a very, very lucky lady. Very lucky indeed.
Only a week after her accident, she is nearly ready to leave hospital.
Without all of these people, I mean, my story might have been quite different. I do think some kind of miracle has happened. I'm not really a religious person, but, well, for everyone else, they thought I was maybe dead. The phone calls that my boyfriend got and other family relatives. So it's just more the sort of pressure that I put on everybody else. Because for me, you know, I never felt like I was dying. I felt like I was fine and just needed the bus off me. But yeah, it's just more what you've put everyone else through and the bus driver. But, you know, obviously it makes you kind of think I've obviously been given another chance. But yeah, I'm just, you know, really grateful to everybody, basically.
It's been 3 months since the Medic 1 team came to the aid of motorcyclist David. Having broken both his femurs, he's had several major operations and is still in hospital, receiving physiotherapy.
I've always said I want to get back out and walking or else. I'm doing well so far, I'm standing and I'm working towards it, and it just comes down to walking out of here on crutches. If it wasn't for them and the fact that they got to me as quickly as they did and they did what they did, there's a very good chance I wouldn't be here talking to you now.
I particularly love this job because patients become ill or injured well before they get to hospital, and they need the same sort of interventions that we deliver at the hospital.